This year, Acura announced that the once sporty RSX coupe would be returning in 2026 as an electric SUV. It's just the latest in a line of questionable revivals that feel a bit like a slap in the face to enthusiasts. My cheeks are still stinging about the Eclipse Cross. It seems like more and more nameplates we loved are getting resurrected, only to be used for cars that have almost nothing in common with the original. But why? The obvious answer is marketing. Giving something a name people recognize is a shortcut to getting attention. But there's a deeper story here that goes beyond just monetizing our nostalgia. So let's take a look at why so many iconic cars that had been buried in the pet cemetery of history are now coming back, and coming back wrong.
Well, sometimes that is better.
What did you do?
So there are three main theories floating out there about why a brand would reuse a nameplate like this, outside of, actually continuing to make the same type of car. Trademarking, brand recognition, and emissions regulations. That last one was a theory that started to gain traction when Ford made their big push for EVs a few years ago. When the Mustang Mach-E was first announced, people freaked out.
No, God! No, God, please, no!
The very existence of an EV crossover with the Mustang name was completely counter to the identity the nameplate had built over nearly 6 decades. The Mustang 2 was bad enough, but this...
Look how they massacred my boy.
Ford called it the expansion of the Mustang family, as they attempted to make the Mustang name something broader than a single car. An icon. That's literally what they call it, an icon.
The iconic and global Mustang family.
They also did this with the F-150, the Explorer, the Transit, the Ranger, and the Bronco, but none of those are being stretched to cover a spectrum as wide as the Mustang name does now. But still, Ford began positioning these icons as their way to appease different types of buyers using the same nameplate. When Ford wanted to get into the new electric truck market, of course they used the F-150 and kicked the dust off of the name Lightning. Now, from a purely marketing standpoint, I totally get this one. The F-150 Lightning of the past was a performance-oriented street truck, but it certainly didn't have the same loyalty as the name Mustang, and the name is actually very fitting for an EV if you ignore the heritage. It's also kind of why I chuckle at the name Dodge Charger EV, and how Mopar now sells a Charger. But back to the Mustang. As a high-riding EV, the Mustang Mach-E has actually been a decent success. The Mach-E was the best-selling non-Tesla EV in the United States in 2024 and continues to do well in 2025. The emissions theory goes that the Mach-E got a Mustang badge because that would somehow help offset the emissions of the V8-powered Mustangs and therefore help keep them in production. If Mustang Mach-E's are zero emissions and Mustang GTs are a lot of emissions, then Mustangs on average are now okay emissions, right? Well, that's not exactly how emission standards work. Fuel economy ratings are company-wide. Every vehicle a company makes in a given year is included in their CAFE ratings, and CAFE stands for Corporate Average Fuel Economy, emphasis on the corporates. There is truth to fuel-efficient vehicles being added to an automaker's lineup to help balance out the big gas guzzlers, but it's not a nameplate for nameplate thing. So if the name on the back of the car has nothing to do with emissions, then obviously we're blaming the marketing folks.
Do you hear that, you morons? Instead of listening to what people want, you're telling them what they want.
It's a marketing department's job to make you want to buy a vehicle, and sometimes the way they go about that doesn't exactly feel like it's based in reality. In 2018, Mitsubishi said the Eclipse Cross was a classic reborn, and that it would have the same reputation for driving dynamics and technology in the form of a crossover. Sure it would. Back in the real world, the Eclipse Cross is just another middle-of-the-road crossover in an already saturated market. The nicest thing Car and Driver could say about this year's model is that it has generous warranty coverage. It's a vehicle so bland that you wouldn't know it even existed if it wasn't called an Eclipse. They say no press is bad press, and I guess Mitsubishi wanted to put that to the test. The OG Mitsubishi Eclipse has a cult following born of its tuner heritage. Whether you know it from its role in the Fast and the Furious or games like Need for Speed, or from the cover of dozens of issues of Import Tuner, the name Eclipse evokes feelings of neon-drenched night roads, turbo noises, and running from the cops. While not every version of the Eclipse was causing danger to manifolds, the GS Turbo came with the 4G63 engine out of a Lancer Evo, and the GSX added a similar all-wheel drive system as well. So to slap that name on a high-riding 4-door hatchback with a CVT and comfy suspension, how does that help with brand recognition? In what way do those two markets cross over? The upcoming Acura RSX is in a similar boat. Anyone who recognizes the name is probably a fan of lightweight front-wheel drive high-revving coupes with a manual transmission. And anyone who's interested in a premium bright yellow EV probably doesn't care about the name RSX. But you know who does? People who were fans of the model the original RSX evolved from, the Integra. And therein lies both the opportunity and the problem Acura is trying to manage here. When Acura brought back the Integra this decade, it was immediately applauded for returning to its roots as a sportier, fancier version of the Honda Civic. Then, it was immediately criticized for only offering a 5-door liftback version and skipping the coupe, even though, that was the same formula as the original. Can't win for trying sometimes. But it had to try, because it saw exactly what happened when you don't reach for that brand recognition. The Acura ILX was introduced in 2012 as essentially what the Integra is now, a more luxurious version of the Civic. But nobody knew what the ILX was when it came out, and without name recognition, it never did very well. In the 10 years it was on sale, the ILX peaked in 2013 at just under 19,000 units a year. The new Integra racked up 13,000 sales in its first year back, then 32,000 units in 2023, and 24,000 in 2024 in an arguably worse environment and economy. In 4 years, the Integra has sold more than the ILX did in 10. And a couple of years later, Acura did enthusiasts a solid and built the Integra Type S. It took all the sporty stuff from the FL5 Civic Type R and crammed it into the fancier body of the Integra. It's still sporty, still has a manual transmission, it still even technically has a K-Series engine. It also costs over $50,000, but that's a problem for a different video. The point is, when it came to staying true to the heritage of the Integra Type S, Acura was able to stay faithful to the original. So, why aren't they going to do that for the RSX? Well, for one, the market for sporty compact sedans and coupes is so small today that financially there's no room for it in the lineup alongside the Integra. But Acura also recently tried borrowing a less controversial name for its first electric SUV, the ZDX, which was previously used for its funny-looking crossover coupe like a decade ago. And even though the reborn ZDX was a fine car, surprise, it didn't work. Last month, Acura announced it was ending production after just 1 year. And to see what happens when you just say F it and swing for the fences with a completely new name, look no further than Toyota's own electric SUV, the BZ4X. Even calling that a name is generous. It's more like a mosh pit of letters. Regardless of whether or not it's a good car, the electric BZ has absolutely zero brand identity. It only sold 18,000 units last year, less than the Chevy Equinox EV, and also less than the more expensive Blazer EV. As a K5 Blazer owner myself, does the existence of the Blazer EV hurt? Yeah. Though the blow was already dealt by the modern gas-powered Blazer that could have been a new Bronco competitor, but settled to be a mass-market crossover. But I also think it hits a decent balance for these marketing departments of brand recognition versus brand loyalty. Reusing old names works best when you're talking to new buyers who recognize the name of the original, but don't really know what it was about. With a name like Blazer or RSX, a new buyer might have a little bit more confidence knowing that's a name that rings a bell, meaning the badge has been around for a while. With a name like BZ4X, they don't know what to think.
What the hell is even that?
But even if you bought one of the worst named cars of the last decade, you still deserve the best bang for your buck upgrade inside. Really good floor mats. But not just any mats, TuxMat. Laser scanned to be a perfect fit for more than 600 makes and models, TuxMat is durable, luxurious, and offers extreme coverage. With high sides and secure attachments, TuxMat has the absolute best full-edge wall-to-wall protection. Mud, pet hair, sand, spills, you name it, these mats will protect your carpet against them all. Enjoy them risk-free with a 30-day money-back guarantee, easy returns, and a lifetime limited warranty. Find your extreme coverage floor mats today at tuxmat.com. So reviving a nameplate for a totally different purpose is a delicate balance. You want a name that people remember, but maybe they're not sure why. One of the best examples of this is the Ford Maverick. Today we know the Maverick as a unibody pickup that some might even be so bold as to call a real truck. But in the 70s, it was a compact sedan more akin to a Celica. The two Mavericks have absolutely nothing in common. But nobody's mad about it this time like they were with the Mustang. The thing is, unless you are the kind of person who knows how to tune a carburetor, I doubt you even knew there was a Ford Maverick from the 70s. While this works for some models, the obscure nameplates don't always have the brand recognition to make a real impact. So why do manufacturers still reuse names that nobody recognizes? It turns out, coming up with new trademarks is hard, both from a creative standpoint and a legal standpoint. Imagine you're tasked with naming a new car. You gotta get something that fits into your company's overall branding, isn't too close to anything that already exists in the industry, but also in pop culture or in politics or memes.
Tecnologia!
You gotta make sure it's not accidentally offensive in some other language. Then you gotta go through the entire approval process where every middle management suit is gonna have their opinion. Then you gotta do focus groups that will inevitably send you back to square one.
That is a good idea.
Yeah, I wrote it down.
Oh, nice.
All that just to end up calling it the Ford Probe. So the easiest path can often be just the resurrection of an old name, and clearly it can be a very successful sales strategy. Plus, the international process of trademarking is a lot more complicated than simply renewing one. Let's take a look at the Ford Bronco. It was once a long dead name, potentially dead forever thanks to a conspicuous highway chase 31 years ago. But now, it's back, and in roughly the same form as the original, riding on a truck platform with heritage-inspired design and real off-road abilities. And it's been a hit! So is the smaller Bronco, except it's not called the Bronco 2 anymore, it's the Bronco Sport. And even though it's now a unibody crossover based on the Ford Escape, it works because it's trading on both the legacy of the old Bronco and the faithfulness of the new one. If Ford had tried to bring back the name with just the Bronco Sport, it probably would have flopped. That's essentially what happened with the new Chevy Blazer, which didn't have a big brother to lend it credibility along with the recognition. Now, rumors have been flying that GM is going to kill off the gas-powered Blazer in the next 2 years. Meanwhile, the Bronco Sport is successful enough that it's actually poised to be Ford's main small SUV as the Escape is going out of production next year. We keep talking about Ford because their idea of icons seems to actually be working. The Bronco Sport sells to people who like to see themselves in a Bronco but don't actually need one. The Mustang Mach-E sells to people who like the idea of a Mustang but don't have the lifestyle, or the knees, to daily a sports coupe. Ford is reusing names to constantly reaffirm their values while broadening the meaning of those names. If they want to make something sporty, they'll call it a Mustang. If they want to make something utilitarian, they'll call it a Transit. From there, they can combine sub-names like GT or Raptor, and you understand what you're getting from any combo. So that's the math of why these names get reused, but should we stand for it? Just because we can point to the reason why companies do this, should we accept them abandoning or changing what the name means to us? The Toyota Supra was the real hot take example for a while. It was easy to look at the BMW-powered A90 Supra and call it a straight-up abandonment of the Supra's real heritage. But as Toyota has said very directly, they wouldn't have been able to make an A90 Supra at all without partnering with somebody like BMW. Not only that, they did it to maintain what they thought was an essential part of the Supra's DNA, a turbocharged straight six, an engine that Toyota did not have. In an alternate universe where Toyota gives us a Supra that they built entirely by themselves, we probably would have ended up with a rebadged Lexus RCF, a capable and durable sports car, but arguably less in line with the Supra's identity than the A90. The upcoming Honda Prelude is in a similar boat. The name isn't as ubiquitous as Mustang or Civic. Honestly, the only people that really feel any nostalgia for the Prelude are going to be enthusiasts. I recently got the chance to drive every single generation of Prelude thanks to the American Honda Collection Hall, and I got a sense of what makes a car a Prelude. Simple, light, competent, just quality. While I haven't driven a new one yet, my hopes aren't high that the DNA has stayed exactly the same, even if it's still a great car. I mean, it literally can't stay the same. The new one is a hybrid. So what should car companies be doing here? Because they have all these nameplates floating around that they would benefit from using, but the market isn't always asking for cars that match up with what those nameplates used to represent, and then we get all mad about it. In my opinion, we just need to temper our expectations as enthusiasts, at least a little bit.
Okay, everybody simmer down now, one at a
Let's face it, we're a vocal minority, especially when automakers are facing hard choices. And usually, when a car does come back sort of like how we remember it, the mass market just kind of shrugs. We survived the 2000s when names like the GTO, the Cougar, the Thunderbird, and even the Dart all re-emerged outside the context of muscle cars. Now that names like the Celica, the RSX, Scout, and even all of Jaguar are coming back, maybe we just need to make sure to breathe, understand there's no world in which they could come back same as before, and hope for the best. With that, I ask you, what names should these companies really try to bring back, even if they can't quite nail the old magic formula? Which ones should stay in the past because to reinvent them would do way more harm to the brand's image than good to randos who buy whatever's on the lot? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. If they want to make something utilitarian, can you pause it?
The way you paused on that sounded so Lynchian. I was just like, it sounded like you were about to start talking in reverse.
How do you know I wasn't?